And I'm live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. It is time for Dracula. I mean, it isn't, but I was kind of ready to start. I was sitting here and I knew I would talk a lot about Dracula before we actually got started reading the story. So, haven't done much with my makeup, haven't done much with my hair. Just needed to be ready and go in time for Alessandra, whose birthday it is today. And I hope I'm going to pronounce this right, but buon compleanno. Buon compleanno, I think. Yes, I have done a very minimal eye makeup, almost nothing, and little bit of red lips. Thank you. I'm sure you are too, even though I can't see you right now. So I'm dressed as a Victorian woman, the best kind of Victorian woman, a virgin. And if you laughed, we're not friends. Yep, best kind of Victorian woman. And this is going to have a lot of bearing on Dracula. 19 years old. Don't know what sex is, but I know that one day my father will meet a man who he owes money to or wants to go colonizing with to the Pacific. And he'll want to get into bed with this man in a business sense. And will put me in bed with this man in a very real, very disappointing sense. And that was a Victorian girl's dream, essentially. But not Mina Harker. We're going to talk about that once I finished trying to sort out my lighting a little bit. Such dreams. Ugh, romance. It's not quite dead, is it? I mean, it is. It's Dracula. Yeah, so Dracula is a fascinating book. It's going to be so much fun to read. It is very strange. Yeah, parenting is probably a deeply cursed thing. I don't know. I haven't done it. I've raised some cats and they are assholes, so I don't think I should be raising children right now. Dracula. Okay. So I don't know if this is intentional or not, and I'm pretty sure it isn't. But a lot of Dracula is the time. Hang on, I got to start from the beginning. Dracula is not a novel in the sense that we, a normal novel. It's an epistolary novel, which means that it's told through diary entries, letters, some spoken memoirs recorded onto wax cylinders in one case. So there are a lot of, dates involved. There are a lot of times and descriptions of when events happen and that. And intentionally or not, they don't line up. Like the description of a full moon on one night doesn't line up with whatever year it's supposed to be, whatever happened in the next few days. Like you can't make the times right. You can't make travel times make sense either. And I've read that it's, whether it's intentional or not, it is a fantastic way of keeping you kind of off base, like kind of unstable just throughout the novel. And I'm really excited actually to revisit it because I don't think I've read the whole thing since I was 9, 10 years ago. No, I don't think I've read, the whole thing all the way through. Probably since I was 18, 19. So that should be quite interesting, I think. If you have been following the Marjorie Kemp tutorials, not tutorials, the Marjorie Kemp live reads, this is the lipstick that I was looking for that day and couldn't find. It is Burt's Bees something something. It all got stuck in the top, so I put it in the fridge, and that just made it cold and stuck to the top. So I just hook it out with my fingers. Although my hair's not black anymore, so I can't just wipe off the excess lipstick on my hair. I never did that though. Right, so we're talking about Dracula, we're talking about vampires, we're very excited about all of this. Dracula is not the first. It definitely popularized the idea of a vampire as a someone who could pass among human beings. Like, just walking around being a guy. You'd be like, that's not a vampire, that's a guy. Yeah, it works great, just applied with the fingers. It's really, like, I don't know if you can tell, but the pigment is really good. And it stays on quite a long time. And I have a lip liner, which isn't that great, but I just love it because it's really cheap. And it's called Nude Dude. I love it. Thank you. Thank you, Alessandra. I hope you're having a really great birthday, and I hope this adds to it. I'm hoping one day to be able to read The Inferno in Italian. I actually have a copy of The Inferno with the English on one side and the Italian on the other, but I don't have the mental, like, I don't have the mental capacity to sit down and read a proper book, much less one in two languages. But I did really enjoy what I was reading. Dracula. Right, the history behind this whole thing. Yeah, I actually read when I was much younger, I was like 8 or 9. I read a science fiction novel about called Inferno. I can't remember who wrote it now, but it was about a science fiction author who died. And he went to hell, and he went through all the stages of Dante's Inferno. We will practice Italian. It'll be so good. It'll be bon. I'm blanking. I'm trying to think of I'm trying to think about Dracula's, and it's getting in my head. Right, so we're just going to do like a really quick buono. We're going to do a really quick overview of vampire literature, kind of. Vampires, zombies, ghosts, all basically the same thing in the Middle Ages. Like, there wasn't that much to differentiate them, right? They were all revenants. They were all creatures that came back from the dead. A ghost could be corporeal. You could touch it. You know, it could dig itself out of the grave and walk around like a zombie. It could make people sick and die like a vampire. There wasn't this kind of differentiation we had today. So when the image of the vampire started to sort of come around from Eastern Europe, the vampire was a gross zombie, essentially. What we would think of today as a zombie, like, it was this mindless kind of shambling thing that clawed itself up out of the grave, and they were peasants, right? Vampirism didn't happen to wealthy families. Sorry, I've shared my thoughts before about that is exactly what Dracula is. He does have some teeth. He have been dead a while. But yeah, if you think about it, burning the body makes a lot of sense if the body is actually what's spreading this wasting disease in your village. If you've been following my Marjorie Kemp live reads, and I hope you have, I talk a bit there about how, you know, vampire myths are often tied to infectious disease. The bit about the vampire myth that we kind of leave out these days is that they I think there's a girl throwing up outside. Well, I mean, the bodies have to be dead, John. That's the law. I'm not saying I agree with it. I'm just saying it is the law. They have to be dead first. Right, so vampires are a pretty easy way to explain infectious disease if you don't know about infection. You don't know about how disease spreads. You've got some ideas, but a fairly logical idea is that somebody has died of this illness. They come back out of their grave to visit their family members, and the family members get sick and die of the same disease. This is how to explain why, a disease targets an entire household. And I think she really is throwing up out there. Poor girl. Lost my train of thought a little bit there. Yeah, right. So they would go and dig up the body of the supposed vampire, and quite a lot of the time, just the normal signs of decomposition of a body would be interpreted as signs that it was definitely a vampire, right? Like the body may have swollen with internal gases, making it look plumper and healthier than it did in its life. And those gases may have forced out some old, blood and fluids and stuff, pretty gross, from the corners of the mouth, from the nose. It would make it look like, this skinny, very, very sick person that we buried is now looking plump, healthy. They've got blood around their mouth. Meanwhile, all their family members are getting sick and dying. We're connecting the dots. Like, we're connecting them in the wrong way, but exactly, they didn't know about incubation periods. They didn't know about how disease was transmitted. They had theories, miasma, that it was spread by bad smells, which is not a bad theory, actually, because, the areas that smell the worst, like a well with a dead body in it, you drink out of that, that's not going to make you feel great. Yeah, it's extremely logical. Also, as a natural part of decomposition, the lips will curl back and the gums and the teeth will look a lot longer because the gums and the lips have shrunk back. The fingers will shrink back, making the nails look longer. The skin on the scalp will shrink back, making the hair look longer. So it looks like this person has been underground in their coffin, and their hair and nails have been growing. Their teeth are longer. They've got blood around their mouth. They look healthier and more plump. It all makes sense. But usually this was a peasant superstition, right? Because we're in the Enlightenment. We're entering the age of reason. People still don't know how sickness spreads, but they're like, oh, vampires, that's just something that exists in Eastern Europe where everyone is, backwards and peasants and whatever. So I'm not great on the timeline here, but I know that one of the really groundbreaking things that changed our attitudes to vampires was John Polidori's The Vampire. And Dr. Polidori, he was one of the people who was at the Villa Diodati, which is, I hope I'm saying it right, I don't think I am, which was Lord Byron's villa in that infamous summer of 1816. The vomiting girl's kind of throwing me off. Poor thing. So he was there. Mary Shelley was there. Percy Bysshe, Bishonen Shelley was there. Lord Byron was obviously there. Where wasn't Lord Byron? And they all had to write a scary ghost story. And Byron's was part of a poem that he later on finished after banging his sister or whatever it was he did. Mary Shelley, of course, started Frankenstein. John Polidori wrote a little novella about how sexy Lord Byron was. He called him Lord Ruthven because that stopped everyone figuring out what it was about. And he made him an aristocratic, very handsome gentleman who went around, seducing people and vampirizing them. So that's deeply, deeply cursed, yeah. So that's really where we're going to say that the image of Dracula, the image of a vampire as a seductive aristocrat kind of began, right? Like, this isn't an Eastern European peasant pulling their way out of their grave to mindlessly feed on their family members. Oh, that is a scary story. I have to say, Alessandra, as a woman who has dated many men, a hot man is a vampire. He is an emotional vampire. He is a psychic vampire. He is a black hole of neediness that you will never ever be able to fill. So you might as well just get a cat, because at least a cat, you can throw it out a window if you're pissed at it. Vlad the Impaler. Yeah, we should get to that. Yeah, Vlad the Impaler is important to this, and it is, of course, before. This is the 15th century, right? This is long before Lord Fire and everything. But as far as I'm aware, and I do have a best friend who has a doctorate in vampire literature, and I probably should have asked her some things before doing this, but I just don't care about you guys enough, or myself. Also, she's busy. She just had her birthday. As far as I know, this is the first. Bram Stoker is the first person to draw a connection between Vlad the Impaler, who is known as Dracula, the little dragon, and vampirism. We're living very dangerously here. We're living on things I halfway recall from stuff I read a decade ago. Like, this is all gospel. You can trust this. This is an academic source. Lighting's making it look like I have greys, and it's giving me an existential crisis. Dracula. Yeah. Meaning the dragon. He was part of the Order of the Dragon. Vlad Dracula's life is actually very sad. He and his brother Radu were given to the Ottoman Emperor. I can't remember, but they were given to the Turks, and the Turks treated them quite badly. There was some allegedly abuse. Don't know. But when Vlad was in power, he did have a troubling habit of impaling people with massive spikes from the bottom, out of the mouth. Not nice. I think if you had to be impaled that way, it would probably be better to go the other way. But, that's just me. So he had a reputation as a very, as a bloodthirsty guy, but not literally. He didn't have a reputation as an actual vampire. Yeah. He, definitely not nice. Definitely not nice. Not a great guy. But Bram Stoker, looking for a name for his vampire, he found Dracula. Oh yeah, sepsis would be horrible. And you'd be so bored. You'd be outside, there'd be nothing to look at except for other people who are also impaled. Yeah, Elizabeth Bathory. Elizabeth Bathory, we can come a little bit closer to linking her with vampires. She was, and this is I want to say late 16th century. And we're not sure how many people she actually killed and how many just made the legend, pretty exciting. But the story goes, Elizabeth Bathory, or Elizabeth, I think, she was married to this dude, didn't like him that much. She was very, very beautiful, and one day she was, quite cruel to her servants, as you would be if you were a dick and rich. We know that because it happens today. At one point, she slapped one of her maids on the face. Her rings scratched the maid quite badly. and the blood spattered onto Elizabeth's face. And, you know, I feel like someone's made this up to make a good beginning to the story, but and she noticed that wiping it away, her skin looked much better and younger. And she was, who among us would not use a beauty product that seemed to work that well that quickly? But by all accounts, it did get a little bit out of hand. She killed a lot of the surrounding girls. Parents didn't want to send their girls to go work in the castle because they didn't tend to come back. So there was Elizabeth, there was her maid, whose name escapes me, and another woman. And I'm pretty sure they were both killed. Oh God, is Kim Kardashian doing blood facials now? I know Gwyneth Paltrow did a plasma facial. Like, she got her own blood drawn and the plasma separated out and they put it on her face because, like, hospitals don't need plasma. I'm kind of pissed because I could be a plasma donor, but I can't because of all the ketamine. There's nothing wrong with my blood. It's 6 hours and the ketamine's gone, okay? It's medicinal ketamine. Fuck it. If they don't want my plasma, Gwyneth does. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely, Bathory's a mystery because it's so hard to tell how much of it happened. I think some of it may have happened because it's a weird thing to make up, and fuck Goop, absolutely. I did not watch the Netflix series. I just watched a video about it, and I was like, oh my God, it's disgusting. It's so gross. Yeah, Elizabeth Bathory. Her maid and her more senior maid, they were both burned alive, I believe. But Elizabeth, being nobility, she just got walled in. So she was stuck in one room for the rest of her life. There was a little like hatch, like a prison cell hatch that they put food and stuff into her. Yeah, it could not have been all blood. I mean, surely. You would have snuck like a pig in there or something just to kind of round it out. But I guess you didn't want to adulterate the ingredients. So there's Elizabeth Bathory, Vlad the Impaler. They kind of became hooked into the vampire myth after Dracula was published. After this book was published, because before that, I mean, yeah, she was a serial killer, probably. She did these horrible things, but there's no contemporary evidence saying that she was undead or anything. There were no precautions taken with her body that I've read about. 75 humans. Oh my God. Can you imagine the catering just for the people murdering 75 humans? No, thank you. It's expensive. We're getting closer to the beginning time now, so I kind of want to wrap up the discussion. But yeah, just a bucket. I mean, just a little bit for the face, really. The face, maybe a little bit of the neck. I haven't thought about it. So now we come to Dracula. And we've had Polidori's The Vampire, starring Lord Byron, who was not Lord Byron, but he still got real pissed about it. He was like, fuck you, I'm not a vampire, and I would never sleep with you ever. And John Polidori was like, oh, I thought you would. Maybe they did, I don't know. It was Byron. So there was that, and then Bram Stoker kind of burst out here with, there are other precursors to Dracula that we're not really going into. I believe Carmilla came first, actually. I have read Carmilla on here. The 15 people. I mean, if you're living in a city, no problem. But she was not living in a city. Probably a bit of a problem. And if they had to be virgin girls, that narrows it a lot. Just me and 14 other girls. And if you laughed at that, you should be ashamed of yourself. I'm a virgin in the sense that I've never done it with a cowboy. It would still be a bother. It would still be a total hassle. All right, and Dracula is published 1897. And it changes the world. It doesn't change the world, but it changes our collective imagination. Like, he goes searching in Eastern Europe for these vampire myths, and he finds out about Vlad Dracul. He finds out about the Vrikolkas. I think I'm saying that right. A kind of vampire. But a lot of the rules of vampirism have been set by movies, really. Yeah, no cowboys. I've never had a cowboy. I'm a virgin, obviously. There was one guy dressed as a cowboy. That doesn't count, though. That was from a costume shop. Right, keeping this family friendly. Yeah, modern day fictional vampires. As a reader of the Twilight series, I read a lot of young adult fiction because it's so bonkers. I like it. But and also adult, like, novels for grown-ups, often they're like, oh, there's a ghost in the house, but the ghost was actually a metaphor for the dissolution of a marriage. And you're like, what the fuck is that about? I wanted to read about a ghost. What is this? But in YA lit, it's usually just a ghost. Pretty cool. Yeah, modern day fictional vampires. I kind of have to assume that the rules of vampirism in that case are that when you become a vampire, your emotional age sticks. Like, you still have a teenage brain no matter how old you get. Because that's the only way that it makes any sense at all. I know, give me a real ghost. Not in here, not in my house. I kind of like this to be my own place. Exactly. I have literally done that. I do miss the horror maze. High school, yeah. Yeah. That would be just awful to be a vampire and to be stuck with your teenage brain your entire life. It would explain a lot, though. Oh, I can see it is 11:53. Oh God, I know. I know. I mean, it makes sense now why those teen vampires are all so emo. They're like, oh my God, I'm never gonna grow up. Like, I'm never gonna be able to make good decisions with this brain. I'm not gonna be able to make good choices. I'm not gonna be able to have empathy for others properly. And whatever else is wrong with a teenage brain. Yeah, my brain was fucking awful at 18. But yeah, we're at 11:53 a.m. I said I would start at 11:40, which I didn't. I'm going to do a quick tweet just to say that I'm actually... No, I'm not. Fuck it. I said I would start at 11:40, and if people have wanted to hear it haven't joined by now, then they can watch it later. It's not a phone call, it's a video. We're recording. Right, I looked this up because I wanted to be sure. But Edward Cullen has 2 doctorates, like medical doctor. He has gone through school to become a medical doctor twice. And then he keeps going back to high school. Why does he not put on a fake moustache and Doogie Howser into working in a real hospital? Also, the dad of the family, he's been a doctor since the 1600s, and he can't realize that his vampire son is clinically depressed and has been since 1918. Like, that's fucked up. Right. I'm going to get into it. It's going to be... And like I said, this is an epistolary novel, so it's journals, letters, shit you write down to remind yourself about stuff. So, Dracula. Chapter 1. Jonathan Harker's Journal. kept in shorthand. And buon compleanno, Alessandro. 3rd of May, Bistritz. I apologize if I get any of the place names wrong. You should try pronouncing the place names around me. Left Munich at 8:35 p.m. on 1st of May, arriving at Vienna early next morning. Should have arrived at 6:46, but train was an hour late. Budapest seems a wonderful place, from the glimpse which I got of it from the train and the little I could walk through the streets. I feared to go very far from the station, as we had arrived late, and would start as near the correct time as possible. You see what I mean about the times being very specific and not syncing up. The impression I had was that we were leaving the west and entering the east, the most western of splendid bridges over the Danube, which is here of noble width and depth, took us among the traditions of Turkish rule. We left in pretty good time and came after nightfall to Klausenburg. Here I stopped for the night at the Hotel Royal. I had for dinner, or rather supper, a chicken done up some way with red pepper, which was very good but thirsty. Brackets, memo, get recipe for Mina. I asked the waiter, and he said it was called paprika Hendel, and that, as it was a national dish, I should be able to get it anywhere along the Carpathians. I found my smattering of German very useful here. Indeed, I don't know how I should be able to get on without it. Personally, I feel like we sound like a little bit simple, like we're afraid of escalators, and we believe that our llama is bad luck, like that kind of thing. But I'm really glad other people enjoy it. Having had some time at my disposal when in London, I had visited the British Museum and made search among the books and maps in the library regarding Transylvania. I like the Scandinavian accents and Italian ones, obviously. Made search among the books and maps in the library regarding Transylvania. It had struck me that some foreknowledge of the country could hardly fail to have some importance in dealing with a nobleman of that country. Jonathan, well done, Jono. I find that the district he named is in the extreme east of the country, just on the borders of 3 states, Transylvania, Moldavia, and Bukovina, in the midst of the Carpathian Mountains, one of the wildest and least known portions of Europe. I was not able to light on any map or work giving the exact locality of the Castle Dracula, as there are no maps of this country as yet to compare with our own Ordnance Survey maps. But I found that Bistritz, the post town named by Count Dracula, is a fairly well-known place. I shall enter here some of my notes, as they may refresh my memory when I talk over my travels with Mina. Well, llamas are pretty bad luck if you're looking at them and you're pretty high and you expected a sheep. Julie, it's the Dracula stream! You have joined 3 paragraphs into Dracula. It's just Jonathan Harker basically saying, I am traveling to Castle Dracula. And the previous half hour has been me talking about vampires and justifying why I call myself a virgin. It's because I haven't done it with a cowboy. I'm not fishing. This is about Dracula. It's not about fishing for cowboys. Cowboys call me. In the population of Transylvania, there are 4 distinct nationalities. Saxons in the south, and mixed with them are the Wallachs, who are the descendants of the Dacians, Magyars in the west, and Sicels in the east and in the north. Sicels? I have no idea. Oh, Jono he means well, but he is kind of trash. He's the kind of trash who isn't trying to be trash. He's just kind of wombling around obliviously. I'm really sorry if I'm mispronouncing things. I am going among the latter. Oh, great. The Sicels. The one I can't say. I am going among the latter, who claim to be descended from Attila and the Huns. This may be so, for when the Magyars conquered the country in the 11th century, they found the Huns settled in it. I read that every known superstition in the world is gathered into the horseshoe of the Carpathians, as if it were the centre of some sort of imaginative whirlpool. If so, my stay may be very interesting. Memo: I must ask the Count about all of them. Yeah, I can think of a couple you probably shouldn't ask the Count about, but no, he can't help it. He means well. He's trying to be good enough for Mina. He won't be, by the way. She's a fucking boss. Yeah, I probably should warn from the outset that this book does have a very strong Madonna whore complex. Mina, she's the good one. Lucy is the trash slut, even though I don't think she actually sleeps with anybody. She's just a trash slut because she's so pretty and all the men like her, blah, blah. So, yeah. Memo, talk to Count Dracula about superstitions. Yeah, you can if you like. We're going to get to Mina and Lucy, but, you know, if that's the kind of thing that really makes you yell at the TV, then please do. I can't hear. I don't give a shit. But that is coming up. I did not sleep well, though my bed was comfortable enough, for I had all sorts of queer dreams. There was a dog howling all night under my window, which may have had something to do with it. Or it may have been the paprika, for I had to drink all the water in my carafe and was still thirsty. Towards morning I slept and was waked by the continuous knocking at my door, so I guess I must have been sleeping soundly then. Yeah, flirting is really bad. Flirting, that's something that a woman who deserves to die and then have her head cut off does. Queer dreams. He's not even queer dreams yet, but he will. This is the big one of linking vampirism and sex. Interesting to note that Bram Stoker's wife was very good friends with Oscar Wilde. So I believe. Paprika Hansel. Sounds nice. I had for breakfast more paprika. And how do you say it? Paprika? 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 I would say paprika. But I've only used it. I haven't actually talked about it much. I have for breakfast more paprika and a sort of porridge of maize flour, which they said was a marmaliga, and eggplant stuffed with forcemeat, a very excellent dish, which they call impletata. Memo, get recipe for this also. Paprika, yeah. We don't know. It honestly doesn't matter. I'll probably go between them. I had to hurry breakfast, for the train started a little before 8, or rather it ought to have done so, for after rushing to the station at 7:30, I had to sit in the carriage for more than an hour before we began to move. It seems to me that the further east you go, the more unpunctual are the trains. What ought they to be in China? No, it's all good, Julie. I was just wondering. It's one of those words until you think you know how to pronounce it until you say it out loud and you're like, wait, what? Is that it? I don't know. All day long we seemed to dawdle through a country which was full of beauty of every kind. Sometimes we saw little towns or castles on the top of steep hills, such as we see in old missals. A missal being a prayer book kind of thing, not a little bit of racism. Yeah, they can't make the trains run right. They're very superstitious. Make very good food involving paprika. Sometimes we ran by rivers and streams which seemed from the wide stony margin on each side of them to be subject to great floods. It takes a lot of water and running strong to sweep the outside edge of a river clear. At every station there were groups of people, sometimes crowds, and in all sorts of attire. Some of them were just like the peasants at home, or those I saw coming through France and Germany with short jackets and round hats and homemade trousers. But others were very picturesque. The women looked pretty, except when you got near them, but they were very clumsy about the waist. They had all full white sleeves of some kind or other, and most of them had big belts with a lot of strips of something fluttering from them, like dresses in a ballet. But of course, there were petticoats under them. He's encountered some women who were beautiful until you got closer. Oh, Jono. Uh, the strangest figures we saw were the Slovaks. Oh my God. Who were more barbarian than the rest, with their big cowboy hats, great baggy, dirty white trousers, white linen shirts, and enormous heavy leather belts, nearly a foot wide, all studded over with brass nails. They wore high boots with their trousers tucked into them and had long black hair and heavy black moustaches. They are very picturesque, but do not look prepossessing. On the stage, they would be set down at once as some old oriental band of brigands. They are, however, I am told, very harmless and rather wanting in natural self-assertion. Hi, Alex. um, yeah, these are these Slovaks. They look very scary, but that's not racist. They're actually very cowardly. I'm just gonna foot wide belts. Absolutely, they look like WWE wrestlers. Um, yeah, if I stopped every time Jonathan Harker does something really stupid and English and racist, I would. And P.S. You cannot be racist against the English. You can be nationalist against them, but you can't be racist. Some of us are living in New Zealand, and our forebears came from Scotland 150 years ago, but we're still pissed at the English. So I did date one for a while. It was a mistake. It was on the dark side of twilight when we got to Bistritz. Oh, I don't know how to say it, which is a very interesting old place. Being practically on the frontier, for the Borgo Pass leads from it into Bukovina. Bukovina. It has had a very stormy existence and certainly shows marks of it. 50 years ago, a series of great fires took place, which made terrible havoc on 5 separate occasions. At the very beginning of the 17th century, it underwent a siege of 3 weeks and lost 13,000 people, the casualties of war proper being assisted by famine and disease. Count Dracula had directed me to go to the Golden Krone Hotel, which I found, to my great delight, to be thoroughly old-fashioned, for of course I wanted to see all I could of the ways of the country. I was evidently expected, for when I got near the door, I faced a cheery-looking elderly woman in the usual peasant dress, white undergarment with a long double apron, front and back, of coloured stuff, fitting almost too tight for modesty. When I came close, she bowed and said, "The Herr Englishman?" "Yes," I said, "Jonathan Harker." She smiled and gave some message to an elderly man in white shirt sleeves who had followed her to the door. He went, but immediately returned with a letter. "My friend, welcome to the Carpathians. I am anxiously expecting you. Sleep well tonight. At 3 tomorrow, the diligence will start for Bukovina. A place on it is kept for you. At the Borgo Pass, my carriage will await you and will bring you to me. I trust that your journey from London has been a happy one, and that you will enjoy your stay in my beautiful land. Your friend, Dracula." Oh, I mean, Jonathan, he's looking at these women. He's getting a bit. He's thinking about Mina cooking him dishes with paprika in them, and he's thinking about how the old lady is looking